Welcome back all to another episode of Decoded, where I, Abigail Posner, have the pleasure of diving into some interesting worlds with some of the most fascinating people I know. And one of them is Dr. Amanda Parks, who happens to be a fashion scientist first and also the Chief Innovation Officer of Pangaia. So we're going to just decode that sentence. So what does it mean to be a fashion scientist?
So yeah, thanks, Abby, and I'm so happy to be here with you. So fashion scientist is what I call an emerging discipline, an emerging domain, which certainly I've taken it on as my title, and I hope there will be people coming after me. But what it really means is looking at all the realms of science in which we design for the body. So this can be, in the most direct way for the fashion part is textile innovation, which can involve biology, material science, fiber science.
Wow.
It also covers things like wearable tech, specifically wearable tech that really goes on the body and integrates. So a lot of things around, electronics, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, structural engineering. So how do we create this relationship with our bodies, which are entirely organic and biology based, and move into the digital realm, right? So we can start to use things like sensors and actuators and everything that allows us to kind of hold and monitor data. So it's quite broad, and inside of this, I have touched on lots of different elements at particular times, starting as a mechanical engineer, and then I did a PhD that was hybrid between computer science and material science, which was a lot of kind of interaction design and robotics design to create, things like textiles that can change shape. Right. So these kind of crossover of a lot of worlds, definitely the crossover in the digital physical, and a lot of it is going kind of into a different scale and scope. So how, the nanotech really starts to affect the materiality of things.
So you're creating new textures, new types of clothing that can interact with our bodies and evolve with our bodies?
Potentially, they can, what I think about it is clothing is our second skin in life, right? And so it is a way that we interact with the world. It's kind of our first line of defense. It's something that can actually, we can regulate and understand what's going on inside of our bodies if we're using it in particular ways that has been embedded with particular features and functions, or that, the clothing can function to protect us from all different kinds of things. I mean, obviously the elements and that kind of stuff, but even kind of going deeper into the future of all the things that are potentially done on your phone that you think of as something that's exterior, can be, done on your body, and potentially in a more, logical, a way that gets to some deeper data. Now, there's obviously lots of issues around privacy and security, and not going into that too far, not to scare people, but this idea that the textile interface between our bodies and the worlds can really tell us about a lot about ourselves, about our environments, and all the data that we can collect can be aggregated to some pretty serious and interesting information, things that we have never had access to, continuous monitoring of the body.
Right. So our clothing can both respond to us, but also respond to the outside world and adjust for that. That's super.
And the data around that relationship. So your body's doing what in what environment, right?
Can you give me a hypothetical example?
So, okay, well, this was maybe not the most interesting, but this idea of like, okay, if everybody in one particular location, like very hyper geolocated, is wearing a raincoat, which, could be, knowing the garment that your bodies are wearing, you could probably predict that, or, assume that it's raining there without ever having a weather report. So there's hyper localized things, or, the body temperature of all the people in one space, you could know potentially how hot it is, right? Those kinds of things where if you aggregate data, it's not just necessarily like about one single person, but all the behavior patterns, the body behaviors of all these people in one particular environment can tell you a lot about that environment without having any external sensing.
Wow. Okay. So one part of being a fashion scientist is really working with the garments themselves and leveraging the data that it externally can source, but also can share about yourself. But there's another side of you being a fashion scientist, which is about the science that goes into developing that
the textiles,
right?
This is really the key focus of my career now. I did a lot more prior work in wearables, and what I sort of was figuring out is a lot of the technologies that we need are not yet to a scale and a materiality, meaning that they're soft enough, small enough or soft enough to be properly integrated into clothing. So what we need to do is take all the things that we, put into the printed circuit boards of our phones and convert that into fibers. Okay, so that so then we can start to weave circuits and not solder them, that kind of thing. But above that, even more, I became really kind of fixated on how much e-waste technologists produce. So this weight, meaning like circuit boards are thrown away. I mean, it's incredibly toxic. So the sustainability of it is quite awful. And not only do we not have good programs to recycle, we even have an industry which, works off of planned obsolescence, meaning that you're supposed to get a new device. You're not supposed to keep your phone more than 2 years.
They want you updating and upgrading.
Yeah, exactly. And so this idea of how disturbing that is, of what the amount of waste we're creating while we're in the middle of the climate crisis, right?
Yeah.
So I started to turn my focus onto this idea of making much more sustainable materials, and some of them being high function, some of them just being, what can we do to make alternatives to cotton? Because cotton is a crop that has an extraordinarily higher amount of pesticides than any other crop in the world, which is really crazy. I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's incredibly polluting, and it ruins the ground in which it's grown. And so this idea, there's nothing inherently bad about the plant, but the way we've just overproduced it, and the methods that we've kind of grown to make it at industrial scales are really dangerous. So this idea, this kind of leads me into what I'm doing now with Pangaia. So we are a material science brand. So we are a fashion company. We make apparel and sell apparel, consumer-facing apparel. But on our back end, we are run by R&D material development, that's the core of our business.
Yeah.
Which is totally unlike other fashion companies. It was shocking to me, coming from tech, how fashion companies don't own the means of their own production, meaning that the way that Google or Apple will be developing the new sensor, working on the new software that they're going to need 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out, they're going to control what that product's going to be, and that they own the rights and the IP to make it, and the vision for what that is. Fashion is very different. They still source textiles, and the method for which new textiles and new advancements in textiles gets developed is very random. I don't know a better word, but part of it comes from the Department of Defense for military technologies. Part of it comes from DuPont. Part of it comes from random, manufacturers in China. There's no kind of system around that ownership. And one of the things that we really want to do is create a direct stream where we're working on textiles that we know is what the market needs. We know that they are, that they are functionally advanced, that they are sustainable, and that they're what fashion companies would actually want. So we develop these textiles, and that's where I'm the chief innovation officer. And so that covers basically running our R&D department and being the scientific director about what kinds of research and products are we going to make. So that's what Pangaia is. We're very much formed as a sustainable brand at our core. So it's not an add-on. A lot of you see a lot of greenwashing in the industry, and we don't even produce garments until we have the right material. And what we do is we call material upgrades, in the same way that you'd update your operating system, right? And inside, it's because it's not that the other operating system was bad, it's just that now we've gotten to a better place. So for example, the first product we launched was a seaweed fiber t-shirt. And seaweed is
seaweed fiber t-shirt.
Yeah, so seaweed is an incredible material. It grows abundantly across the earth. It can be harvested in a totally regenerative way. So we're not going to, take too much of it. There's a lot of ways that to use it as very much a waste product. It took some innovation and engineering to make it soft enough to kind of compete with cotton, right? And so that's still going on. It's still kind of in its early days. But the first t-shirt we released was about 20% seaweed fiber and 80% organic cotton. So it's like a trade-off. We're kind of inching right. It's still good. It's better. But now we're very soon about to launch 100% seaweed. So we've gotten it.
Whoa.
All right.
So I can basically eat this t-shirt.
You do not want to eat this t-shirt. I mean, you can, in the same way you could eat cotton. I mean, cotton's a plant.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to taste good, and you're going to choke on it. But it's not toxic in any way, so that's good.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen to the seaweed to turn into a fiber that removes probably most of the stuff that you want to eat, the oils. Right. We're looking at the cellulose, not the part you don't digest, not the oils.
Right.
So yeah, no, and literally some of this came from the first company I founded was an algae biofuels company. I've always been in love with like microalgae, this glowing green, amazing material.
Yeah.
And what was so interesting about that is that the oil that we were trying to get for the, to create the fuel, that was the inside of these cells, these microalgae single cellular organisms, and the outside, which is like a cellulosic wall, we were throwing that away. Now I'm using that part. So, there's a potential for this to be a two-pronged thing where one part of the algae goes towards making biofuel, another part goes towards making textiles, which
is super cool.
It's a perfect circular model for any product, using waste, using every part of the plant or animal, right?
Right. Well, and what's super cool about, in addition to how sustainable the clothing is, it looks really cool too. So talk to us about the types of the styles that you're creating.
Right, absolutely. So part of our brand, and to be honest, I'm like the back end nerd of the team. Everybody on the team is way cooler than me, right? Definitely fashion presence. And
right. You're so uncool.
but the way we've decided to kind of move forward is through a series of basics that because what we wanted to go back to basics in terms of materials. So what would we use to replace cotton? Seaweed, right? And those kinds of materials are what makes the biggest impact, right? So it's things that people wear every day, things that people buy a lot of, t-shirts, shorts, hoodies, right? Hoodies and track pants are a bestseller by far. I mean, right now it's the stay-at-home uniform, but in general, it has the broadest appeal across, gender and age and, and everything. But we made it just cool enough so that, it's not like, it's not your grandpa's tracksuit, right? So there's
it must be super popular right now, given the COVID era, right?
Oh yeah, we've been sold out. Every time things are sell out. We're now apparently doing drops, which we didn't mean to be.
What does that mean?
Drops. So like this is like when Supreme is like, okay, they only have like 2,000 of an item, and they announce when they're going to release it, and then everyone gets online and tries to buy it, right? So we were a small growing brand, and we were basically we wanted to reproduce responsibly, not overproduce, right? And also we're growing, we're not going to, have a massive inventory. But suddenly when COVID struck, it's like, okay, there was this massive demand. Of course, manufacturing was also reduced because a lot of factories were closed and everything. So we started basically when we were just what we were just doing is refreshing the product became the drops, and they would sell out within a couple of hours or an hour. One new collection sold out in 3 minutes, which was crazy.
Whoa!
So,
congratulations!
No, it's been what's been wonderful about it is, and we see this kind of through our social media, is people are actually responding to this idea of wanting to buy a responsible product,
right?
And with this idea that you can make a difference with your dollars, and you like the transparency around businesses. I mean, my gosh, like that, just everything that's going on about kind of blowing open the doors on terrible practices, across all different kinds of industries. But this idea that we're very transparent about what we're doing, that the products are made of responsible materials, and we're just going to be getting better and better. So the more that you buy our products, that goes back into our R&D, right? So we'll be making better, not just a pure profit model. I mean, we do have a whole philanthropy part of our thing too, but knowing that, that we are spending a base level of our money and our attention to make new products, that's part of that circle that you want to be with.
Stay tuned for episode 2 with Amanda Parker.